Hello, friends. It's Eti from Lincolnwood Library, and I'm here to share some of my favorite middle grade books from 2020. This is not a definitive list. These are just some things that I've really loved that maybe you will love. And if you do, you can always support your local independent bookstores and buy a copy today. They make amazing gifts. So let's get into it. I'm so excited that our friend Sadia Faruqi, who visited us virtually earlier this fall, has published 2 books this year, and they're both amazing, of course. Place at the Table with Laura Chauvin is about 6th grader Sarah, a Pakistani American, and Elizabeth, a Jewish girl, who both connect with each other during an after-school cooking club and bond over the food and their mother struggles to become United States citizens. So good, and it makes you really hungry and want to eat all the food. So I'm here for that. This is 1,000 Questions. It's told in 2 voices. It's about 11-year-old Mimi, who is visiting her wealthy grandparents in Karachi, Pakistan for the first time, and Sakina, a daughter of the grandparents' cook, and they form an unlikely and unexpected friendship. And really, it's an amazing story of connection and identity and finding out more about where you come from. Every chance I get to talk about Twins by Varian Johnson and Shannon Wright, I will do so. This is one of my favorite middle grade books this year. It is a fantastic graphic novel about sisters, Maureen and Francine Carter, who are twins and are trying to figure out how to assert their individuality. Sometimes causes conflicts, and they have to learn how to communicate with each other and manage those things, and just all the changes that happen in middle school. It is a phenomenal book. Read it. The next book is the sequel to Front Desk, which we all loved. And this is about Mia Tang, who thinks that she's going to have the best year ever. This, as you remember from Front Desk, they're finally the owners of the Cala Vista Motel, and things are seem to be working out. But then it's 6th grade, and there's lots of things going on. Her writing teacher doesn't think her writing is very good. The motel is struggling, and there is a new immigration law that's looming, and if it passes, it'll threaten everyone and everything in Mia's life, and this is based off of a real law. So this is very much rooted in real events that ripple to today. But we know with Mia's perseverance and persistence and the community that she creates that we can keep rooting for her and rooting for all of our kids. A Wish in the Dark by Christina Soontorn-Vat is a Thai-inspired fantasy, sort of a twist on Victor Hugo's Les Miserables, but you don't need to know anything about that to enjoy this. It is a fast-paced adventure that explores the difference between the law and justice and asks whether one child can shine a light in the dark. It is gorgeous. It is beautiful. It opens up a lot of really important conversations about power and privilege and access. It's just Christina Soontorn-Vat can write everything. It's incredible. Becoming Muhammad Ali by James Patterson and Kwame Alexander is a novel in verse with some prose passages about the childhood of Cassius Clay, who became Muhammad Ali. It is a biographical novel, so it's rooted in the reality in the nonfiction, but it is fictionalized to give freedom to be able to tell the story. With really powerful poetry, with amazing illustrations from Dawood Anabuile. It's just a really engaging, fun book. I don't have to convince you. You know you already want it. Before the Ever After by Jacqueline Woodson is her at her best. This is a novel in verse about ZJ and his close relationship he has with his family and his friends who are his support network. But something has been changing. His dad has been acting different. He is a retired professional football player, and over time you realize the impact of traumatic brain injury on him and on his family. And this is a really groundbreaking book in talking about that and engaging with it and questioning the systems that enable that to happen, but with such compassion and heart and love for ZJ and his family and his relationship with his dad, who he loves dearly. So I highly recommend it. Another amazing book that I can't stop thinking about is Everything Said is Untrue, a true story by Daniel Nieri. This book really plays with form and structure and style. It's really individually distinct and distinguished. It is basically the story of Daniel's family fleeing Iran and him telling his classmates the story of the generations in his family, and them sort of not believing him, sort of Scheherazade style. And so to telling his personal and true story through fiction allows him a lot of freedom to be able to express himself, and it's just magnificent. Another really powerful book that's also part of a series is the Capstone Girls Survive series is Mary and the Trail of Tears, a Cherokee removal survival story by Andrea L. Rogers, who is a citizen of Cherokee Nation. And this is a time in history that needs to be talked about more. This is about 12-year-old Mary and her Cherokee family are forced out of their home in Georgia by U.S. soldiers in May 1938. From the beginning of the forced move, Mary and her family are separated from her father. Facing horrors such as internment, violence, disease, and harsh weather, Mary perseveres and keeps her family and friends together until they can reach the new Cherokee Nation in Indian Territory. So, highly recommend this and all the books in the Girls Survive series. Another awesome Own Voices book is The Reluctant Storyteller by Art Colson, illustrated by Carlin Bear Don't Walk, and then The Energy of Thunderbirds, which is with illustrations by Roy Boney Jr., and Cherokee Life Today by Tracy Sorrell. This is a really interesting book. It's basically a really great emerging reader sort of story. The first story is a contemporary story about Chooch, whose family is storytellers, and he doesn't really want to do that, and trying to figure out his own place in the world, in their community. The second story is a retelling of an old Cherokee tale. And the third part is about Cherokee life today, so it is an informational text. There's lots of interesting opportunities to explore different ways of telling stories within this, and kind of thinking about how you can be a storyteller in many different forms. Another powerful book is Land of Cranes by Ida Salazar. This is a novel in verse. I read it in one sitting. I couldn't stop. This is a really hard story, but a story that needs to be told more. This is about Batida. So her father's always told her the story of the cranes who returned to the promised land. One day, her father is arrested by immigration and customs enforcement, by ICE, and deported. And then her and her pregnant mother are also detained and put in a family detention camp. And it doesn't hide away from the challenges in those situations or the systems that create them. And it also makes sure to spotlight the hope and the courage and the fortitude that Batida and her mother contain and have, and a call to action to change those systems. One of my favorite books this year is The Barren Grounds. I love fantasy, but I also love fantasy that opens my mind to new worlds in many ways. This is from David A. Robertson. And this is about Morgan and Eli, who are two First Nations kids forced away from their families and communities and brought into a foster home in Winnipeg, Manitoba. And they feel really disconnected from their culture, from each other, from school, until they find a secret place, a portal into another world. And then they go into that world called Aski, which brings them to the barren grounds, these barren grounds that have been affected, that there has been somebody who has been there, an interloper, who has taken resources that are not his and created a perpetual winter. And it's up to them to help the community that is there survive, and perhaps in the process they will save themselves and find their own identities. This is part of a new series, and I'm so pumped for it.